Thank you so much, Carmen, for being here today. I am so excited to be interviewing the COO of the NAIC. Thank you for being here. As a Latina, I feel proud and I have amazing questions for you that I'm sure will inspire our readers.
Well, I am so honored to be here, Yvette. Thank you for inviting me and for including me in your program. I really appreciate it.
So my first question, you come from a strong single parent household. As a single mom, I bow down to you.
Well, I am not a single mom. My mother was a single mom.
Your mom was a single mom.
My mom was a single.
My apologies.
Yes, no problem.
So you know what it takes to get ahead, and your mother is very accomplished, as I read.
Yes.
So being that you are an accomplished Latina who understands the power of self-education, access, and community, it has taken me personally years to embrace my own power. Honestly, I didn't even know I had any power until later in life. So I was curious, when did you wake up to your power?
So I was thinking about, like questions that might come up, and and this was always one where I get asked, when was it that you realized that you were a leader, right? And there were things earlier in my life that were leader-like, but I didn't realize that I was being a leader in those moments, right? When I first woke up to really my power and my potential to have impact was in my early 30s. So it was late, right? The type of impact that that's kind of life-changing, right? Like the moment where you're like, oh my God, I can do this. I can be this thing, right? I was captain of the cheerleading team. I, started an organization at my university with a fellow Latina. I did those kinds of things in leadership, but where you're like, wait a minute, I can really have change for my people, for my community, for diverse communities, was when I joined an organization of American Latinos that was founded by Henry Cisneros and Raul Izaguirre. And it was the first time they built this organization because they felt that our community had gotten to a place where there were enough powerful, wealthy Latinos that they could drive change from the top down rather than from the bottom up. And so they started the organization with 40 of their best friends, right? Other people who were, as wealthy, wealthier, as accomplished, more accomplished than they. And I ended up working there as the director of marketing. And so, I walk into this place, everyone is Latino. Everyone they're an entrepreneur, they're in financial services, they're really super senior, they might sit on corporate boards. I mean, the most accomplished Latinos, right, in our community, but it was a small group. It was a small group of people, and the amount, like the immense change that they were able to drive because of their intellect, their influence, their access, right, their strategic thinking was mind-boggling. It blew my mind. And I was like, well, wait a minute. If they can do it, why can't I? Right? And when you surround yourself with people who just do it, who believe it's possible, you start to believe it's possible too. And so that was when my change agency really kicked into high gear, right? That was like, okay, I'm going to be a change that I want to see, right? I found my leadership voice, however, in my next role when I became the CEO of an organization called the Marathon Club. And it was one of those situations where, be careful what you ask for, right? Yo era bien brava. I was real, courageous in my negotiations, right? When I joined, I was vice president. And I was like, listen, I want to get paid this much. I need my title to be this much. I need everyone to know that I'm your successor, right? And there's not going to be a search. There's not going to be any of that. People are going to know that whenever you get ready to leave, no rush, I'm the next CEO, right? Oh, brava, brava, right? And it was so funny because I thought I had 3 years. He left in a year and a half. And here I am, this young Latina, right, with a degree from a very good school, but a state school, right? Never having spent a day in financial services, leading an organization of private equity investors, middle market entrepreneurs, senior level corporate executives. And it was an incredible journey. I mean, I look on those days so fondly, but thank God I had some really amazing mentors who helped me find that voice and trust my instincts. But it was that role in particular, those two moments in time that kind of were formative for me as a leader.
Well, they say there are some people, and I think I'm one of those, when I'm thrown into the fire, that's when I really sort of show my true colors. And it does make a difference. There are other people that you throw them into the fire and,
and they melt.
So
true.
It shows how fierce you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to thank my mother for that in a lot of ways, and my husband. My mom, growing up, I never knew when she was scared. I never knew when she doubted herself. I never knew when she questioned whether the decisions she was making in my life were the right ones, right? And we all, as parents, we go through that. But she never showed that to me. And so it was always this like, look, we're forging ahead. We're going to do this. We're going to, she continued to grow. She had a very successful career in military intelligence and civil service generally. And then my husband, when we first got together, we didn't have two pennies to rub together, right? We were just in love and, and life threw twists and turns at us, right? It throws you curveballs. And we always had this saying, well, we're here now. What are we going to do? Right? We're here now. What are we going to do? And so it was in those moments, to your point, right? You have to, you're either going to shrink and fall apart, or you're going to lean into it with everything you have and power through, right? And so I've had some, so I've been blessed with some really amazing people in my life. But yeah, I am. And I'm a fighter just kind of naturally.
And that's where the growth comes in.
Yeah. Yes. In those moments, 1000%.
Absolutely. Now, I was raised by Dominican parents who arrived New York at the age of around 20. They did the best they could with what they had. Now, growing up, I had to learn about, the basics, debt, credit, retirement funds. They didn't know anything about that. And as I've, raised my daughter, I've taught her, because I've been working in the finance world for too long. I've taught her the importance of credit, of a bank account, of, if you can have some sort of account, like a stock account.
Yeah.
Those things are important. So as a woman who understands the world of finance, and, you've learned so much and have been around, some amazing people in that world, what would you say are the two biggest actions that a young woman can, or any woman, it doesn't matter because it's never too late, a woman can take to gain financial empowerment, it's huge, whether you're married, whether you live with someone, you should have that financial empowerment all on your own. So what are those two big actions?
It's so funny you say that. I always tell my daughter, so next year, my husband and I will celebrate 25 years of marriage.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I always tell my daughter, right, even though this is the example she has, I always tell my daughter, you always want to be able to support yourself, right? Regardless of what happens, you need to have your own porvenir, right? And so, yeah, because it's absolutely true. So your daughter is blessed that you've been able to share with her the lessons that you've learned. And hopefully that's what we all do, right? Every generation should be a little smarter and bring those that are coming up behind us. So I think that I would say learn, right? Take an active role in learning about how to manage your money, right? There's a group, and there's a woman, her name is Beatriz Acevedo, and she has a company. She built a company. It's a fintech company called Summa Wealth. And it provides culturally relevant financial education, literacy, right? To Latinas in particular, but Latinos generally. I always talk about that because I think it's incredibly important. In our community, we don't talk about wealth. We don't talk about money, right? There's almost a shame, culture around wealth, right?
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
And
right.
so, mira, sin pelos en la lengua, get smart about, about your managing your money and growing it, right? The other thing that I would say would be to be fearless in pursuit of your dreams, right? And so when it's really easy to stay in the roles that are comfortable, that you can handle it, you checked all the boxes, but there is no growth in that, right? And there's no, you're not living in that, right? And so I would say, one is the very tactical, get smart, read everything you can, take advantage of the fintech platforms. If you have financial advisor friends, talk to them, right? There's a woman here locally in the DC area that her name is Michelle Gordon. She just launched her own, a Latina también Dominicana. And she just launched her own personal wealth management company, right? So friends like that you have like that are in the business, pick their brains, right? And follow a working model. But the other thing is, man, we all deserve to live extraordinary lives. And so I think that we should be fearless in pursuit of that.
And you're right. But it's coming from the background that we do, it's almost something that's not forbidden, but it's something that it's like, no, that's not for you.
It's impolite to talk about.
Right. So I'm very happy you said that, because that is living. You have to be able to, just look at what else can I do? How big can I get? And when I say, and I don't mean it in the bank account. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to be able to desire to grow as an individual, mentally, intellectually. I think that's hugely important. That's
absolutely
living.
And the other thing is, and this is what we don't learn, but I learned in that first role that I told you about when I walked in, with all of these wealthy people, what they held very close to was that you can do good while doing well. In fact,
is that your quote?
The better that you do, the more good you can do, right? And so the wealthier you are, right, the more you can help, the more good you can drive in your community, in your environment, in your family, and whatever, right? I mean, there should be no pelo en la lengua, right? There should be no shame. There should be no fear in pursuing the absolute greatest wealth that you can, because it does empower you. Money is the thing, right? It is the thing.
I always say, and I've always said this, money doesn't give you happiness, but it does give you options.
Without question.
That is what I live by. And it's not that I'm a greedy person. It's not that I want the, $1 million home. I want to be able to do well, help my daughter do well.
Yes.
And, it's important, and help those around me. And when I say those around me, I mean Latinas like me, because we deserve a piece of the pie. We can all have a piece of the pie.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the pandemic brought on many challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And people lost jobs, women left the workforce, and we've had to learn to pivot. in different ways and unexpectedly. Can you offer any suggestions for women professionals to stay motivated, to stay confident as they hopefully continue to pursue those dreams and goals? I like
Yeah.
to say goals because dreams feels like that's, far away.
Yeah, yeah. Look, whichever word you use, we should be pursuing something good and big and a little scary, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'll tell you when I've gone through challenges in my career and had kind of those dark moments where everything looks bleak, right? I have made the mistake of not reaching out to my tribe, right?
I got chills.
Of not reaching, of sort of isolating myself and not wanting to either be a burden or not wanting to show weakness or, any of those things. And when you do that, you lose this engine of positivity and encouragement and great advice and insights and opportunity. And, so it's the one thing that I would say, because this is a really difficult time, right? It is challenging. Women have been impacted more than anyone else. But I would absolutely say, reach out to your tribe, take advantage of all of the things that they bring to bear. If you're looking for new career opportunities, make sure people know you're looking for them, right? Because if they don't know, they can't help you. And so, I would definitely communicate with your closest tribe for that strength and that encouragement, and then your kitchen cabinet, right? Whoever your mentors, your sponsors are, to make sure that they know that what your aspirations are, what it is, and the goals that you're trying to accomplish. The other thing is, man, we need more women doing amazing things.
Oh God, I am so happy you mentioned that. There's always been, and I don't know if that's been your experience. I think you're probably younger than me, but
Probably not. Probably not.
I bet you I am older than you. Are you older than J-Lo?
No.
All right. Well,
You're not older than J-Lo. Okay, that's a sidebar conversation. We hit the record off button.
Okay.
That's a sidebar conversation.
That sounds good. But one of the things that just growing up, there was this whole competition, at school, at work. And I really, it's that whole thing I mentioned. There's enough pie for everyone.
Right.
And we really get so much more accomplished when we work together. And that's one of the messages that I would love to continue to, just promote. But it's a
And
tough one.
women are force multipliers, right? So when you empower a woman who's empowering another woman who then empowers another woman, the impact is exponentially greater than just that one person, right? And when I remember I had a team once that was literally all women. And they were brilliant and they were confident and they were just, hardworking and dedicated. And the things that this small team was able to do was far more than a team that size should have been able to accomplish, right? But we were able to sort of feed on each other's energy and encourage each other and stand in when we needed to. And there was no ego, right? There was no, well, that's not my job, or I can't, or competition, right? No one fighting to be in someone else's role. And we were extraordinarily productive and successful, right? And
But that comes from the top.
yeah. So it comes from the top for sure, because you do have to set the example. You absolutely have to set the example. But you also have to own your space, right? Really own your space and bring your full value to bear. And everyone did that, and everyone else embraced it, right? We were all like, yes, thank you, like, do your thing. We celebrate and uplift you. And that it was a really amazing thing. And that's how my closest friends are, right? I surround myself with women who are incredibly accomplished and really smart and really good human beings, good people, good souls. And we celebrate each other, right? We celebrate the accomplishments and the great things, and we hold each other through the challenging things. Yeah, I mean, I think an encouraged, empowered, uplifted woman is an incredibly powerful force.
Oh, yes. And I do hope that, maybe with this ordeal that we just lived, that, we start looking more closely at those type of, nurturing those relationships as opposed to, um,
Yeah. I think this, the pandemic has given us a lot of time to sort of think and evaluate, right? Things that matter to us. What is important? What am I on the path that I want to be on? Your circle, right? Are the people around you the right kind of people? And so I think relationships have changed pretty dramatically, during these last 2 years. But I'm with you. I think it is a time to be positive, to uplift, to support women, create opportunities for women, because they have been the hardest hit in this pandemic.
Now, as a chief operating officer of the National Association of Investment Companies, this is a huge network of diverse owned private equity firms and hedge funds. How, being such a huge network, and it is a powerful network, how do you assist diversity and women?
Oh, yeah. So great question, and an easy question, because that's what we do, right? So the National Association of Investment Companies has been around for 50 years, right? And we have, for the full balance of that time, advocated on behalf of diverse investors, right? And so we have about 140 members now. They're all asset management firms, and they're owned by either women or people of color, or both, right? And so they manage in the aggregate about 260 billion in institutional assets, institutional capital, right? So really accomplished firms. That, though, the percentage of capital in this industry that is managed by women and people of color is 1.3% of $70 trillion. 1.3% of $70 trillion. And so when you think about the fact that when you combine women and people of color, it's more than half the population, right? It's substantially more than half the population, yet less than 2% of all of this capital, a lot of which is paid in by people of color, right, is managed by women and people of color. It's a travesty. It's an absolute travesty. So we do three big things, right? Three big buckets of work. The first is increasing access to capital for these diverse owned firms, right? So we build bridges and open doors to sources of capital, institutional investors. These are pension funds, they're foundations, university endowments, corporate pension funds, insurance companies, family offices, all of those sorts of capital. And so we have a whole list of programs and initiatives that open doors for our diverse managers to access those relationships, right? The second thing that we do is we deliver market education. And so that's really research and training for those institutional investors. So the research focuses on the performance of these diverse managers. So we're telling the marketplace how amazing their performance is. And oh, by the way, they actually outperform the non-diverse firms, right? In good market cycles and challenge market cycles, over long-term periods and short-term periods. And then we train institutional investors who are interested in investing with these managers on how to stand up effective programs focused on that. The last bucket, and this is where women come in like in full force, is addressing industry challenges, right? And so we focus on the biggest challenge is the pipeline issue. How do we get more women and people of color and women of color into the business, right? And so we have a series of programs and initiatives. The one that's probably most relevant for today is our Women in Alternatives initiative, where we have a three-pronged approach. It's in, up, and beyond. And so we seek to increase the number of women coming into the business of color, the number of women of color who are moving up through the leadership ranks of the firms that they're in, and then those who are launching their own firms eventually.
Wow, that is very impressive. And I mean, it is making a huge impact. I love
It is.
that.
So we had, I can get carried away with this. So stop, give me the hand if I talk too long. We launched our Paradigm Changers internship this year. And so we had our initial cohort. We recruit women from non-traditional fields of study, right? So not business, not finance, not right. Most of we had a few of those, but the vast majority were in fields like engineering, environmental sciences, healthcare, marketing, things that were totally unrelated, right? And they didn't even know what private equity really was, right? But we exposed them to careers, we actually place them in internships at private equity firms, which is a huge deal because private equity is one of the most insular, difficult to penetrate industries, in business. So we put them in internships, and then we layer over that internship experience with training to better position them for success. Then we have the second component is meeting women of color who are at the midpoint of their careers, 7 to 10 years or so. And we provide them with training on how to navigate up the leadership hierarchy. And we pair them with a mentor that has already traveled that journey. And then lastly, we provide training and capital introductions for women who want to launch their own firms.
I mean, I've been working in the financial world for, like I said, too many years, and I can honestly say that, I mean, this is something that can make a huge impact. It's really hard to be a woman and a woman of color in the industry. It really is. I mean, I worked on a trading floor for years and never
which
saw
is the worst
anyone
ball
that looked like,
battlefield.
no one else looked like me.
Right.
In the whole floor.
Right.
So
Right.
to hear this, and I've told my daughter, I want you nowhere near Wall Street. But
yeah. Well, don't say that, because here's what this is the other thing, the other data point that I say, no, let's not do that. There are probably some places that are better than others, but this industry, private equity, has created more diverse billionaires faster than any other industry. And so this is why I get so excited, because I didn't know what private equity was until I was 30, right? I didn't have the chance or the opportunity. I ended up finding my way into the business, right? And led investor relations and business development for a real estate private equity firm. But I mean, that was on the strength of relationships and people who saw me perform, right? If you don't even realize that this could be a career path for you, right? If you don't check it out and see if your skill sets make sense here, if the environment and the culture, which is tough for sure, right, is a place that you'd like to check out and see if you can succeed, you never have the opportunity, right? You never have the opportunity, but it can be a massive transformational, transgenerational wealth engine.
That is true. So if and I'm sorry, you said you have a daughter.
I have a daughter and 2 sons.
So if any of them said, we want to go into the business, you would say, of course.
Oh, I would. I absolutely would. And then you know what I would do? I would wrap them with all of my relationships, right? I would expose them to, I'd have them, on Zoom calls like this, having conversations, interviewing people, to the extent that I could get them in internships, I would. But my kids have literally want to do nothing related to what I want to do, to what I do. No, I mean, they're not, they couldn't be, further from my kids are creatives and, and really focused on sort of service, right? Which I do
That's
service,
good. You
but
do,
it is,
like,
no,
so
they're
it's
good. I'm so proud of my babies. I'm so proud of them. But yeah, no, they have no interest in business or finance or any of that kind of stuff. But I totally would because I've seen it, right? I think about this one gentleman. When I met him, he was successful. You know, he was an engineer that found his way to, and some people will know who this is just by the description of the journey. But he was studying engineering, went to Princeton, met his wife there actually. And I think he was in consulting or something, and somehow found his way into private equity. Maybe he went to, when he went to business school, right? And I remember when he was working at another firm. This is now less than 20 years ago. This is 15 years ago, just 15 years, which is not long, right? So successful. He's in finance, he's in the business. So, he's making, today, he's worth more than $1 billion, like much more than $1 billion, right? In 15 years, Latino.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And so, and that's not, everyone doesn't make it to those heights, but I mean, between the people, where we'll call it where I am, and the billionaires, there's a whole list of people who are worth, we multi-decamillion, multi-centimillion, whatever. And it's because it's such an incredible wealth driving industry.
I mean, and not even if you set that aside, it's you learn about
Everything.
And the relationships are invaluable. I mean,
they are.
And for me, I think that's one of the things that I value most, other than obviously, the intellectual property, like what I learn, but it's about the people that I come across, about the things that I learn. And I think that alone it really is valuable.
It is. And it's really, it's interesting. I would 1000% agree. I'm sort of a collector of people, right? I build relationships and I hang on to I hang on to them. And I have met some of the kindest, most giving, most fascinating, brilliant, inspiring people in this space. Not that they don't exist elsewhere, because they for sure do, right? So I'm not limiting those, but it has exposed me to people that I never knew existed.
That's exactly how I feel. So, all in, I feel blessed because I've been able to, give my daughter a good, provide.
Yes.
Because of the industry. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing those stories. I love stories. I'm a storyteller, so I love that. Now, the industry, as we know, is predominantly male.
Yes.
How do you see a career in finance and I think we sort of touched on this, as a pathway to power for a woman?
Yeah. So wealth is the thing, right? Money is the thing, right? And if, we keep going back to that, but not in a crass way, right? I mean, if you think about it, money is what creates access to better education. And it creates money to a better neighborhood, better schools, right? Like better healthcare, better food options, better everything, right? It just is the thing. And it takes away certain worries, right? There's certain concerns and worries that those who have more just don't have, right? And so when you're able to sort of not worry about the basics, you can really discover yourself, right? You can really lean into growing who you are, and you can pursue your dreams with less fear and feeling, and with less worries about the risk, right? And so, I by no means think that money is everything, but it is a big thing. And, and it creates access, it creates opportunity, it creates freedom.
I just wrote that word. I just wrote that word. I think for, and like I said, it goes back to my upbringing.
Mhm.
It's sometimes it is seen as an evil,
Yeah.
and it's not. It really does give you independence. It gives you, like you said, freedom. It gives you the options to do other things that honestly it's really hard to do when you don't have it. So for me, I do believe it's power, and I just don't think it's the purchasing power. I think it's a lot more than that. And
It's personal power,
personal power,
personal
personal
power,
power.
1000%. Right.
I am sad to say that this is my last question. I am so enjoying our conversation.
I am
Now,
too.
I like to end all our interviews with a positive message. And this is like this whole 30 minutes is so filled with goodness. But I want you to provide us with one piece of message, advice that will inspire women who are on their own journey to becoming their best self. And that can be, emotionally, financially, it could be in any way. But what's that one piece of advice that you would like to leave us with? And you gave us so much good
Limiting me
stuff.
to one.
Okay, let's do two.
Okay. No. So the one that I'll say, and I think this goes with the fearlessness of the earlier conversation, but take risks, right? Take risks. Women tend to want to check every box before they pursue a new opportunity, right? Where men might have 30% of the boxes checked, and they go in fully believing they're capable of doing, the job, right? And getting promoted within the first year, right? It's the most amazing thing, the confidence that they have. But take risks, right? Step outside steps outside of your comfort zone. And you do that with, knowing your value and knowing your capabilities, right? So you've got to really take an accounting of the way, like I said earlier, the way that when you went to a place, gave of yourself, you leveraged your energy and your intellect and your insights and to make it better than when you first arrived, right? That is value, right? And that is your power. And so those are the things that you take risks, knowing that you have these abilities, that you have these capabilities, that you might not know everything that next role requires, but you can learn it. And you've done all these other great things in the past, so you can do those great things here too, right? So I would say, I would say take risk. I probably have a million things, but I definitely, I would start with take risk. And then the second one I would probably say is always use your voice.
Ooh.
Always use your voice. Never stay silent in a room.
Well, for women, using our voice is something that, I know for me, I've had to learn to do that. And it's taken me most of my life. But now that I have it, you can't shut me up.
Right. And you should have never been silent in the beginning, right? Because now you see how the impact that you have, the positive things that you can do, the way you help people and environments and companies and firms and grow because you use your voice, right? I had a mentor once say to me, if you're in a room and people are talking and you never say anything, what do they need you for? Why do they need you?
Wow, that's powerful.
Right? Oh no, I had some doozy mentors. I had some doozy mentors. I'm thankful for all of them. But he was very clear with me. He was like, because there were, long story, not enough time here. But it was that period of time when I was like, how, be careful what you ask for. And I would sit in the boardroom and I wouldn't say anything because I felt like everyone else was smarter than me. And he's like, but we chose you. We chose you to lead us. If you don't lead, what do we need you for? Right? If you don't contribute, your energy, your insights, your vision. Why are you there?
I am telling you, if I would have had I mean, there are so many girls, women that they don't have, the
They
the
don't.
insight, the knowledge, the relationships. You really are doing some incredible work, and I'm grateful because it's making an impact. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm so
Thank you
grateful
so
to be
much for
part of it.
having me. I loved this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.